When we tell the stories of the things that we've been able to do for them, that's one of the best ways for us to compel new businesses or new candidates to start working with us.
Say hello to testimonials and reviews, the secret to turning happy customers into powerful social proof. Selling your services has never been easier, but
how do we go about really effectively harnessing those great experiences and turning them into the stories and narratives that we want to share with our clients and candidates going forwards?
In this episode, I'll be sharing tips like:
we need to be leading this conversation. It's not enough to simply go and ask them, what does good recruitment mean to you? We need to break it down, we need to give them examples, and we need to effectively tell them what good recruitment could be. What I'm going to do is take you through a 5-stage process in terms of thinking about how to get more reviews, more testimonials, more feedback, and better quality feedback from all of your clients.
Keep listening to find out how testimonials will turn your sales pitches into compelling stories full of social proof. I hope this episode is helpful, and if it is, please give it a like and follow the show. If you have any questions you'd like to put to me or to future guests, you can join the Recruiting Better community. The link, as always, is in the show notes. But for now, let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Recruiting Better podcast with me, Ben Browning. This week, I'm going to be sharing with you a whole host of techniques and tactical advice that you can use to get better reviews, testimonials, and feedback from your existing clients. We've been looking at marketing techniques over the last few weeks on the show. Episodes and interviews with some of the best thinkers in the worlds of sales and marketing. And this week I want to take a specific deep dive look into how you can think about creating a suite of testimonials and resources that you can share across all of your channels that specifically relate to your clients' experiences and the great results you've been able to get them. Look, we know, don't we, that recruiters create a huge amount of value for your clients and candidates, and that when we tell the stories of the things that we've been able to do for them, that's one of the best ways for us to compel new businesses or new candidates to start working with us. How do we go about really effectively harnessing those great experiences and turning them into the stories and narratives that we want to share with our clients and candidates going forwards? There are a number of different levels to the reviews and the feedback and the kinds of advocacy that we might get from our clients. Everything from what I would describe a happy shopper review. Anna is amazing, Brian is brilliant, Craig is incredible, and those happy shopper reviews are great, they're lovely. It's nice to get that kind of feedback. These are the sorts of things we see popping up on LinkedIn all the time. But in order for us to really create compelling messaging with our clients and candidates, we need to go above those happy shopper reviews and really talk about what it was that we did for those businesses, what steps we took, but also what impact we have for them that's going to make a real difference. I don't know whether you come across this experience, but oftentimes when I talk to businesses, they know they've done a really good job with a client, but when they go and ask for feedback or they try and have a conversation with them around how that process has gone, they find it really difficult to get any quantifiable or measurable or any kind of detailed feedback from that business at all. And there's an opportunity missed there. So what I'm going to do is take you through a 5-stage process in terms of thinking about how to get more reviews, more testimonials, more feedback, and better quality feedback from all of your clients. And within that, also thinking about how to use it as an opportunity to upsell and cross-sell and take that to the next level. I want you to think about this as a deep dive into making the most of every relationship. Imagine the scene. A client comes to you with an urgent business critical role. You know it's going to be hard to fill, but you're ready to take on the challenge. This client is too valuable to turn that opportunity down. And whilst that role might be difficult to find candidates for, you know that if you can do it, you can prove yourself to the client, you can make a really big impact across their organization. So you slog away, you bust a gut, you source a short list of candidates. They look at all 4 CVs and say, wow, these are the best candidates we've seen. We didn't think people like this were out there. You go through the interview process and the candidates match up to those expectations that the clients had of them. And at the end of the process, you get an offer. You get an offer for their first choice candidate, but subsequently, you also get an offer for one of the other candidates for a more junior role. Fantastic. From this unfillable role, you've gone and made 2 placements. The candidates are delighted to accept the offers and you get them started. And you go back to the client and you say to the client, look, how did we do? You know, we've worked on these roles with you. How was that experience from your perspective? How did we do? Tell me a little bit about what it was like working with us. And the client says, yeah, you did great. Yeah, you found us 2 candidates. Really happy. Yeah, they're getting on really well. Yeah. We, you did exactly what we expected of you. Thank you so much. You might be a bit pleased and grateful that they've said, yeah, good job. You might feel, reassured that they recognize that you've done something for them. But you might also be a little bit frustrated that in their feedback and their response, they haven't really valued the full breadth and depth of your work. They haven't recognized, A, how hard it was to find those candidates, B, how much of a difficult role this was to fill. You might be expecting a little bit more from them in terms of the feedback that they give you. And when you think then about asking them for a testimonial or a review, you might think, well, all they're going to say is it was good, it was okay, it was satisfactory, we did what they expected. That's such a shame, and it's such a missed opportunity. You might feel like there's more that you could have got from them. You might feel like perhaps your work, your effort, and your results deserved a little bit more than the sentiment from the client that you happen to meet their expectations. So how can you deal with that? How can you get more out of those situations? How can you get to a place where you've got glowing testimonials that will make it easier for you to win business in the future? With the right approach to taking feedback, you can not only get insight and data from your client that will help you win new opportunities, you can get the kind of feedback that can help you shape your services and products as you take them to your existing clients as well, turn you into a better recruiter. You can even get direct introductions, referrals and recommendations to people to work with, and not just a name of someone to contact, but your client actually taking a step to proactively introduce you and really make that connection. That's what I want for you. That's what I believe all recruiters deserve to secure every time they go out and do a wonderful piece of work. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you here. Now, the first step, of course, is to set the scene with your client early in the process that you're going to be working on improving how you work with them over a period of time. This isn't just about making one placement. It's about making the placement and learning what you can do better, differently, and more effectively for them going forward. So right at the start of the conversation, you want to be, when you're taking the job brief from your client, you want to be saying something to them like, working on this role will give me an opportunity to learn about how you guys operate and any areas or potential bottlenecks in your process. It will also teach me what's important to you within the hiring process. And my goal is not just to work on this one opportunity for you, but really help transform your experience of hiring and ultimately see if we can turn it into a competitive advantage for you. There are going to be a number of things that we might measure in terms of how you rate your experience of recruitment or how you rate our service. But I wonder if we can just take a couple of minutes right now to think about what's most important to you about this hire. Is it the quality of the person you employ, the speed and the time it takes? Is it more to do with the diversity of the people that you meet? What are the kind of range of measures that would ultimately look like a great recruitment experience for you? And perhaps then you can also share some examples of benchmarks or other kinds of ideas that you've measured with other clients that kind of give a sense of what other businesses believe good recruitment is based on. So having that conversation nice and early and upfront and letting your client know that you really care about transforming their experience of hiring gives you a platform to also tell them that you're going to go back and ask them for feedback at the end of the process. And maybe you're not just asking them for feedback, but you're thinking about asking the team or anybody else involved in the hiring process. Once you've got that set of measures or that understanding of what good recruitment looks like to them, then you can benchmark yourself against that using either objective measures, calculated measures, things like the number of days, hours and minutes that the process itself took, the number of candidates they met, number of hireable candidates they met through the process, or maybe even more subjective measures, things like hiring manager satisfaction or the way in which they feel that you communicated. Surveying those sorts of things, both before and after, tracking those in different ways, really effective to get that sense of a set of measures that you're tracking through the recruitment process. And of course, it's so much easier to go and take feedback or have a conversation around feedback when you know what your client's expectations were. This isn't easy because your client doesn't always have clear expectations from the start. So we need to be leading this conversation. It's not enough to simply go and ask them, what does good recruitment mean to you? We need to break it down. We need to give them examples, and we need to effectively tell them what good recruitment could be. Give them a projection of what they might track our performance against. And in that way, we can kind of almost rig the rules of the game in our favour. Then through the process, we're going to be tracking this data. And once it's complete, we can go back to the client and have that conversation. When you go and have the feedback conversation, I want you to think about not just, did we do a good job? Not just did we place the candidate, but what was the hiring manager's experience of the process? How did we do against those particular measures and data point, and play that data back to them? Perhaps giving benchmarks across what it's typically like when you work on a role like this. What we're also going to consider is the subjective experience of working with you. So really thinking about how they felt overall about working with you and trying to get a sense of that. Now, the way to do this is to frame these feedback questions not as an opportunity for them to praise you. We're not asking, oh, what did you like about our service? We're saying, look, give me an objective overview. Where can we improve going forward? What have we done that you've liked that we should keep doing and perhaps double down on? What areas of our process did you not feel worked so well for you? And what did you learn about recruitment through working with us? And in having those more rich questions, those more diverse set of questions that you're asking your client, you're going to tease out better answers. You can also ask a really useful question, which is the comparison question. So something like, so how did working with us on this role compare to your experience of recruiting in the past? And what that'll do is it'll give you a story, a journey it'll tell you a little bit about what they've done in the past and what their experiences have historically been and what they are like now. And it'll tell you a little bit about what matters to them in the difference between your approaches. Winning high quality new business is more difficult than ever. And as you know, we are strong advocates of using email in your BD outreach. But we also know that using email outreach campaigns is more and more difficult. Google and Yahoo have upped the bar in terms of what they consider to be spam. And so working to create great results from email campaigns is more and more difficult. And if you're sending messages at volume from your primary domain, you really need to be worried about domain health. Not to mention the fact that only the most hyper-relevant, hyper-tailored content is going to get the kinds of responses you want from your clients. Our partner Outstation does all of the heavy lifting for you. It's an amazing tool that runs end-to-end services from data collection through segmentation, through using AI to really target and get specific about who you're sending messages to. Is a real game changer in terms of the way that we use both a combination of technology and that human touch. Outstation goes a level beyond anything that we've ever seen before. And we've got clients all over the world in different sectors across recruitment who are getting fantastic results just from using the tools at Outstation. If you want to check it out, head to the show notes. There's a link there for you. And if you go through to their page, they will give you 15% off a discount from your first order. So go check out Outstation, change your results from your email campaigns, and it'll help you win more business. Once we've got that feedback and that information from the client, we can obviously start thinking about categorizing it. Are we mostly positive? Are they mostly negative? Are they somewhere in between? Now, the first action point to take from that feedback is to consider how can we rectify or address any areas of concern. So the first thing to do once you've got that feedback and that information is to consider how can we rectify any areas of concern, or how can we take steps to improve against those areas. What I want you to think about is using that feedback conversation to go to them with a proactive plan for how you can make things better next time. You don't want to be caught off. You don't want to be caught off guard. You don't want to be caught out by their feedback. If they say, look, it was slower than we expected, you want to have a plan for how you can speed it up. If they say, look, we weren't certain about the quality of the CVs you sent over, you want to have a plan for how you can improve that. If those improvements are what you would consider to be problems, real kind of areas where we've made a mistake or we've let the client down, then you want to build in the solution to those areas as part of your core service. But if they say, hey, look, we recognise that you didn't do as much in this area as we perhaps might have liked you to, but you think that what they're asking for is above typical expectations, and that by solving it, you can go further than their expectations, think about building that solution into another kind of offering, or whether that be an increased price, whether it be moving to exclusive, or whether it be moving to retained. So, for example, they might say, well, look, we really want fewer candidates and a better quality of shortlist. And you might say, well, look, we can do that for you. To do that with you will require us to consult you more closely on the job brief at the point that you're defining exactly what kind of person you want to bring into the role. And in order for us to be able to do that for you, we want to work more closely as a partner. We need to know that you'll work exclusively with us, and the briefing, you'll kind of work with us as your only agency. So look, we're happy to go further with you in terms of really understanding that briefing and that need and really putting the effort in. But actually, that would be part of our exclusivity offering, or the offering that we offer to our exclusive partners. So if you want us to take that next step, that's something we might need to look at agreeing. So you're going through these problems and pain points and these opportunities for growth and improvement, and you're categorizing, is this a pain and a problem somewhere where we've let the client down, in which case we improve it for free, of course. On the other hand, what about if it's an area where we can exceed their expectations by adding more, and we can go a little bit further, and that way we can think about upselling them, providing them more of a service, increasing our fees, or maybe looking for more commitment from them. As we go through this conversation, if the overall sentiment is generally positive, then we can do the next stage. Then we can think about turning this individual into an advocate for our work. And there are a number of ways that we might ultimately do that, some of which are going to be things like reviews and testimonials, and others of which are going to be more like introductions and referrals and recommendations. So we've got this positive feedback, and what I'd like you to consider doing is saying to the client, okay, let me play back to you what I've understood from what you've said. So my understanding here is that your general sentiment about the work that we've done is fairly positive. It sounds as though you're relatively, happy with the service we've provided. Now, once you've understood that impact and the benefit that you can have on the client, you can use this as a springboard to getting the next level of advocacy that you're looking for, be that a review, a testimonial, or be it a recommendation and an introduction. And the way that you do that is you'd ask this question. You'd say, okay, so do you think it's possible that there are other people out there who have felt as though they aren't getting the full benefit of recruitment? Maybe that they find that for them and their business, they're losing time with their team because of the amount of time they spend reviewing CVs and writing up interview notes and conducting interviews. Do you think it's possible there are people maybe in your business or across the industry who could benefit in the same way that you have from our service? Yes, I think it's possible. Okay, cool. When you think of those people, when you think about people in your business or across the industry who maybe have some frustrations about how much time recruitment takes, does anyone in particular come to mind? Are there people you can think of right now who you reckon maybe recruitment isn't working as well as it could for them? And again, you're looking for them to say yes. And as they say yes, you say, great, cool, out of interest, who are those people? Who comes to mind? Now, you may find that your client doesn't have anybody specific in mind, in which case I would have done some preparation. I would recommend you do some preparation and look at their LinkedIn profile, look at the people around them in their business and say, what about Greg, my boss? Yeah, when he comes to hire for his other teams, do you feel like there's ever a time where Greg feels maybe he spends too long on interviews or too long reviewing CVs or too much time typing up notes and not enough time with you and your colleagues and the people he reports in, the other people that report into him? Well, yeah, I guess he probably does. Okay, cool. Now tell me, how do you think Greg would respond if I reached out to him and I shared with him some of the data around the work we've done with you in terms of the amount of time we've saved and the kind of impact it's had on the business? Do you think he'd be open to having a conversation around how we've achieved that? Do you think that sort of stuff would matter to him? Do you think it could potentially be something that he might consider making a priority? Again, we're using really soft language. If I say, would Greg think this is a priority? Almost certainly going to get a no. But if I say, is it possible that Greg might consider the prospects of potentially making this a priority? I've got far more chance of the person I'm talking to saying yes. Okay, so far I've done a few things. I've taken the feedback and I've sorted out the negative feedback from the positive feedback. I've sorted out the problems from the opportunities. I've got the general sense that this feedback is positive and I've been able to understand the impact that our work has had on the business. I've asked whether this kind of problem may come up for other people in the industry or in the business, and then I've asked for specific names of people who we might want to approach, or I've led with a name if the client has told me that they can't think of anybody directly who would have this kind of problem. At that point, I'm not done. So I understand that their boss or somebody in their industry has these similar challenges. Here's what I'm going to say. When you think of that person, when you think of the person whose name you've given me, if I were to reach out to them and have this conversation, is there anything that you think I should avoid mentioning or anything you think I should prioritize mentioning in that conversation that might be most helpful for them, that would be really useful for them to hear or understand? What parts of working with us would you tell them if you were talking to them about the things that we've done? And so again, we're creating this narrative. We're getting your client to think about how would they sell you. Now, it's only a small step from here to turn that into a testimonial or a review, but we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to keep our powder dry for a couple more steps. So your client at this point will be playing back to you, we really like this, I really like this, I really like this. If they asked me, I would definitely tell them these 3 things about you. Great, cool. And if I were to reach out to them, what do you reckon would be the best way? Do you have an email address for them? A phone number? Is there an opportunity where maybe the 3 of us could get together and have a brief conversation? What would be the best way, do you think, for you potentially to introduce me if you were going to? And again, we put that caveat on the end if we were going to. There's a hypothetical question at this stage. They're talking about the ways that they might introduce you. And then we say, look, okay, cool. I don't want to put you on the spot here. So you can tell me if this feels uncomfortable. But is there any reason that you would not want me to speak to the person you've mentioned, or any reason that you don't think I should speak to the reason that you've mentioned in this conversation? To share with them the experience that you've had of working with us and to see if that could have some positive impact for them. Now they're at a decision point, aren't they? Now, if their overall feedback is positive and they've given you the name of somebody they know and they can introduce you to, why would they possibly say no?
Standing out in your sector is becoming harder than ever. Lots of people are making noise, saturating the market with the same old droll tones. So if you want to stand out, it's time to start a podcast. Yes, there's loads of podcasts out there, but how many of them are actually in your niche? Do any of them speak to your perspective on the market? I didn't think so. Podcasting not only sets you apart as an innovative thinker in your market, it is great content for repurposing. Here at Search That, we help you become the voice of your industry. We can stretch your content and turn it into a content goldmine, leveling up your personal brands and recruitment marketing in the process. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, to find out more, head over to searchthat.co.uk /podcasts.
So now we've got this introduction, now we've got this recommendation, now we're in this position to move the conversation forward by reaching out to somebody directly. We've also got from the client a breakdown of specifically how they would recommend you or what they would say. The next step is really powerful. We turn that feedback, that breakdown that the client gave you, we turn that into a text transcript. Now, if you're using something like a text AI-based transcriber, like a Otter or Fireflies or any one of these amazing services that we've got these days that automatically transport your text into. If you're using any one of these tools that will transform your calls or conversations into text, then this is really simple. You just lift that text, tidy it up in the way you need to, and then share it back to the client via email and say something along the lines of this. Hey, thank you for the call today. Really appreciated hearing how you've experienced our service and the positive feedback you shared. I've written down the notes from the call because I want to make sure that I've captured this accurately. We talked about me reaching out directly to the person that you mentioned, and I'm really happy and keen to go and have a conversation with them about this, but I just wanted to make sure that I've captured your experience accurately. If I were to go and share these key points with them, would I be representing your experience kind of authentically? Hopefully, of course, they'll say yes. No, they might say, well, no, you've missed X, Y, and Z. You could also ask, look, is there anything else I should add? Is there anything you haven't mentioned that you think would be useful here? Would you like to put in, would you like to add in any comments that might help me in the conversation? So now you've put yourself in a position where you've spoken to the client, you've got their positive feedback. You've written it down in text, you've shared it with them and got their agreement. They now approve the message that you're taking out. And you're taking that message out to someone that they've recommended you speak to and approved you to speak to. In fact, they've even given you contact information for that person. My recommendation would be to send that message, send that breakdown of their feedback directly to the person who they're introducing you to and saying, hey, look, I spoke to Bill. This was Bill's feedback on our experience. I mentioned to Bill whether there's anyone else who could potentially benefit from the work we've done, and your name came up. Sure, you're really busy, but I wonder if you'd be open to talking about this. The other thing you can do with that client is you can turn that written bit of text, that conversation that you've had with them, into something that you share as a testimonial or review. And all you need to do that is when you're speaking to the client about this written piece of text and getting their approval and getting their acceptance of it, is you say to them, hey, look, from time to time I get approached by people in a similar situation to you who've had some experience of recruitment and they're looking to do things differently going forwards. And they really ask me what it's like working with us. And as much as I can tell them about our service and our approach, what they really want to know is about the kind of impact and the benefits that we have for businesses. And as much as they might trust what I say, at the same point I recognise that, I've got a job of winning new clients. And so the best way for me to articulate what we've done for businesses is to share the experiences of people like you. Is there any reason why you wouldn't be happy for me to share your experience with them so they can better understand their options when they're thinking about working with a new provider? Why would a client who's given you a positive feedback, positive review, agree to it in writing, why would that person be concerned about you sharing that with future businesses? There's a few reasons why people might not be totally comfortable sharing that with the public, and that is absolutely fine. They might not want to give support to you to help their competitors and make their competitors' life easier. But most people, the vast majority of people you speak to who have given you a positive review, written it down, and you've got it down in writing, they've approved that is the right message, and you have asked them if you can share it with people like them who are weighing up their options, like most people are going to be really positively minded towards it. Now, you might think that you've done everything you possibly can. You've navigated that feedback conversation really effectively. You've upsold, cross-sold based on that information. You have now got you've got the positive feedback and turned that into recommendations and introductions to new people, and you've got their contact details, and you know exactly what to say to go out to them. And you've turned that text-based review into something you can use on your website, on your LinkedIn page, as a LinkedIn post, in all the different various avenues that you might do that. The final thing, though, the cherry on the top of all of this, is when you then say to that person, hey, look, I know this is really cheeky of me, but what we find to be really effective, what we find people really like, is not just when we can send them or show them a written piece of feedback, but is actually where you and I hop on a call, in a conversation, and talk about the experience, and we just take a snippet of that conversation and share that with them. Now, of course, you'll remember that we had that conversation last week. So if I pull a snippet of us just talking about your experiences and exactly how it was that you enjoyed working with us, would you be happy for me to share that in maybe just one or two circumstances where people directly ask me for our direct support, or they're really kind of looking to consider and weigh up their options? Is that something you'd be open to considering if I sent you the clip and you could hear what it sounded like? So now, again, we have their permission, and the final step to kind of take that even further is, look, if it's possible, I'd really like to include this in our website or our YouTube channel, maybe even on our social media content. Again, no reason why you would say yes to this, but is there any reason you'd say no? And so, again, we're asking that final question. But this is all about, a large part of this strategy and this methodology is about breaking it down into those incremental steps. Thinking about what do you want and what do you want to happen next. And rather than going to your client and saying, hey, can you give us a video testimonial, which they may well do, is really structuring the process and the conversation for getting to that point, is really breaking it down and doing it in tiers, which means not only will you get vastly more video testimonials and feedback from your clients, but you'll also get much better quality video testimonials and feedback, because the conversations, the clips, the parts of the conversation that you're sharing will be much more thought through, much better articulated, and much less like the happy shopper review. Adam is amazing, Ben is brilliant, Craig is completely crazy, and much more like the kind of rich, intuitive, impact-based, process-driven feedback that your clients really want when they're considering who to choose as a new supplier. Let me know what you think of that approach. I'm fascinated to hear how people go ahead and apply these kinds of things. You'll have your own nuances, your own takes. You'll have elements of this that your consultants will really enjoy, and parts of it that they'll feel really reluctant about. But I guarantee you one thing. If you go out now and you speak to all of the clients who you have relationships with, anybody you've done business with, even if you haven't filled the role, frankly, if you go back and you start talking to them about feedback in this way, you'll be amazed at how much information and opportunity you uncover. Opportunity to improve your service, opportunity to improve relationships, opportunity to improve your terms and increase your fees, opportunity to get testimonials, reviews, and feedback that you otherwise wouldn't, introductions to new businesses, and even written and video-based content you can put on all of your social media channels, which will drive new business towards you. This is a kind of technique and methodology that I wish I'd used more as a recruiter, and when I see recruiters use it today, I'm really excited by the results they get. So as I say, let me know how you get on, and I look forward to hearing your stories. And perhaps if you have some examples of this, we can include those as case studies in future episodes of the Recruiting Better podcast. Just one last thing from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, hit like, hit follow, and consider leaving a review. Your feedback is really greatly appreciated. We're still looking to perfect the format and to think about how we can make this show even more valuable for all of our audience. So as you leave feedback, we pick it up and we'll be including it in everything we do going forwards. And if you want to get closer to the show, to ask me questions or hear about upcoming guests and put questions to them, then head to the show notes where you'll find a link to the Recruiting Better community. From there, you'll be able to get our newsletter with regular updates and send me any messages or feedback that you want me to receive.